Would you rather own 100% of a little grape or 10 to 30% of a massive watermelon? Welcome to the 9 Doors Down Show, where we discuss anything and everything about commercial real estate and investing. Let's get it.
Nine doors down.
John Lopez.
9 doors down.
Hi, this is Tony Rose.
9 doors down.
Hi, this is Anthony Pimentel.
Educating, capital raising, networking.
Nine doors down. 9 doors down.
This is called a show.
What up, y'all? Welcome to another edition of the 9 Doors Down Show. Anthony, I think we got a heavy hitter that just blessed us on our podcast for this episode, man.
Yep. This is my first time meeting him, and I'm really excited to hear his story.
This live recording, this is my first time meeting him, but I've been hearing of his name for quite some time through all these mutual friends that are out here in Las Vegas and, pretty much the seeds that he helped planted. If it wasn't for our mutual friend, we never would be in discussion with this gentleman. So this gentleman, he goes by the name of Ryan Woolley. The benefits of multifamily were realized at a young age for Ryan, managing partner of Seven Rains Captital, as he watched his grandfather acquire apartments throughout Sacramento, California. His biggest takeaway was the quality of life those assets provided and the legacy his grandfather was able to leave behind because of them. Ryan took that vision, acquired a degree in accounting from Utah Valley University, and has used that knowledge to start and maintain a very successful real estate business. What began with a focus on single-family flips has now evolved into a portfolio of $400 million. Once again, $400 million and over 3,700 units in multifamily assets bought and sold, spanning over 6 different states. Over the past 12 years, Ryan has become a proficient underwriter, which has been critical in mitigating risks, identifying opportunities, developing strategic operating plans, and optimizing overall investor returns. Ryan now lives in Orlando, Florida with his wife and 6 kids, creating a legacy of his own and helping others do the same. For those that are at home, in the shower, listening to this podcast, or you're stuck on the 405 in Los Angeles or the 15 here in Las Vegas, or the 95 down the East Coast corridor down through Florida, let's welcome our very special guest, Mr. Ryan Woolley.
Awesome. Thanks, guys, man. I appreciate it.
Ryan, it's a pleasure to have you here. And as I stated on the intro, I host various meetups here in Las Vegas, Bay Area, San Diego, and Los Angeles. And there's a common theme ever since 2020. Yes, I meet an individual, bright mind, coming from a very reputable real estate educational mastermind. So it's a pleasure to finally have you on here, pick your brain, and have your story shared with our listeners. So,
thanks, Sean. I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Let's fire away, man. What was life for Ryan prior to Seven Rains Captital?
Yeah, it's a great question, man. One of the last things you read in that bio of mine was creating generational wealth and a legacy for my family. I got married 2 years ago, and that's kind of where the inception of Seven Rains started. So my wife's last name is Meebs, spelled backwards is seven. She grew up on 700 acres in Wyoming, right? So you can imagine she grew up on horses, grew up, with cattle. And so Rains, man, we own 4 horses now together on a little ranch. And so really, man, I made a decision I had a lot of success, like you said, and I was making a decision whether I wanted to retire, what I wanted to do. And so getting married, you can imagine 6 kids. My wife had 4, she has 4 girls, I have 2 boys. And some of the older girls, they were like, listen, don't retire. I want to learn the business. I want to learn, what's going on. I want to learn how to do it. I want to work for myself. I don't want to work for someone else. So 2 years ago, man, is where, Seven Rains started. But before that, I was always an entrepreneur, man. Like you said, my grandfather grew up in the industry. He was a general contractor, built apartment buildings. He died a multi-millionaire, traveled the world. And so I knew I wanted to do the same thing. And so, dude, I flipped single family properties. I started a website. I, eventually got into multifamily because I wanted to scale. And I think that's what entrepreneurs do, right? They scale. And essentially that's what led me into multifamily, man.
So would you say that you got your mindset through family?
Yeah, I would say through family, through friends, through tough times, man, through growing. A lot of people, they don't welcome taking on hard times, right? But I think hard times create strong people. And so, I think a lot of us have heard that. And so, man, I think a lot of my mindset has come through trials I've gone through in life, trials I've seen friends go through, and it's led me to where I'm at today.
Welcome to the course on raising capital for investments. In this course, we'll cover the following topics. 1, analyzing your investment strategy. 2, discovering potential investors. 3, crafting your pitch. 4, securing your investment. 5, our cheat code. We'll round out the program with our very own cheat code for getting in front of investors and being ready to pitch your investment opportunities. Take action today. Visit schoolofninedoorsdown.com and learn to attract capital.
That's awesome, man. It's Anthony and I, we always talk about the struggles we had in our early years. You know what I mean? And now, like, the fruits of our work is now starting to finally surface, after X amount of years. And not a lot of people do realize that for the first couple of years, especially in multifamily, you're not seeing much. Maybe you get an acquisition fee, here and there, but your big pop is not until deals start to exit. And so have you had experiences where people just had the wrong expectations going into multifamily?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'll give the analogy. It's kind of like your kids see that you're successful and they get married and they think the success is the same thing, right? That they're going to have all the nice things that you have. And I think that a lot of times, like you said, the mastermind that I was an owner in, a lot of students that we taught thought, man, hey, he had success. I'm going to be the same exact way, right? I'm going to get into it and get out of the gates. What they don't hear is what has happened, to get to that point. And what's interesting, I did a post on my social media about a year ago. And I really went through a vulnerable area, right? I was like, listen, in order to teach and get people to where they need to be, you need to set proper expectations, right? The number 2 things that investors look for is communication and transparency. So I wanted to be transparent with people. My first acquisition fee, John, that you just mentioned was $10,000, $10,000, man. Crazy, right? I look at today, I live in 5 acres. I live in a nice home, and I live a pretty decent life. And, a lot of people, they don't see the struggles that I went through. So $10,000. My next one was $20,000. Well, I had a business partner at the time. So think about that. I had to split that 50-50 with him. So really my portion was only $5,000, right? You go to a lot of these programs and they're like, man, you do a deal, acquisition fees are $375,000. Well, what goes through your head? You're like, dude, I'm taking that down. What they don't explain is you got to split that a lot of different ways, man. Right?
There's 20 other co-GPs on the deal.
Yeah, bro. Like, listen, I like to eat, man. I love to eat, love food. I'm coming out to Vegas soon. Dude, I love the little smorgasbord, man. I'll eat. But listen, there's only so much of a pie, bro. Like, and you get a sliver of a pie and you're hungry, you want more of that pie, right? But the reality is you don't want little slivers, but when you start out, you're getting the slivers, And so, but those slivers eventually, they fill you up, right? And they get bigger and bigger as you go along. And so that's what people need to realize is, you're right, you stick to it. That first acquisition fee may be $5,000 or $10,000. The next one might be 15 or 20, but are they progressively getting bigger? What have you learned, right, about getting more ownership? How can you get more ownership? And I think that's some of the things that I like to teach is how can you get to the path of financial freedom, right? It's usually 5-6 deals down the road, but how are you being strategic to place yourself into those deals to gain more and more ownership along the way?
That's awesome. I mean, that's a great. So here's the thing. Like, I love entrepreneurs. We're all entrepreneurs, right? We always taking punches. So kind of in your teachings, like, how do you, I feel like action or some students who stumble in some challenges, don't know how to get through it, kind of take a step back. Like, how do you get them to keep moving forward and always just motivating them to continue on instead of just giving up on the first obstacle they encounter.
Dude, can I go back and can I share a story of what allowed me to get to where I'm at
absolutely.
today? Okay. I went through a divorce, and I always relate this divorce to the movie Invincible. And in the movie Invincible, Mark Wahlberg plays for the Philadelphia Eagles. And you get to the end of the movie, right? And he has this note, right? He hasn't had a lot of success. He makes his team, and he reads this note, and it says, "Hey, you'll never be anything. You'll never amount to anything, right? You'll never have a name for yourself." And I remember my ex-wife, when we were married, I remember making $180,000, man. That was the height of like the most I'd ever made. And I thought, man, dude, I'm making it. I'm making more every single year. I created this mattress company online, right? I'm making additional money. I'm doing consulting work. I thought, man, 180 grand was pretty good during that time for my family. And she turned to me, she said, "Listen, you're just middle class, and that's all you'll ever be." And so when I went to my divorce, right? Yeah, right, John, that's like, ooh. And, I went through my divorce and got through that. And I used that as fuel, right? I use that as going, man, no matter what challenging times that I go through, I wanted what I called FU money, right? I want to be like, hey, listen, all these doubters in my life, including myself, right? I was going to prove that I was somebody. And it didn't matter what got in my way. I was never going to take no for an answer. I would ask questions. It didn't matter if someone said I didn't have time. I'd ask more questions. I'd find someone else that had time, right? So I never gave up. I kept asking more and more questions until I got the answers that I wanted. And I think that that's what most people do, is they reach a roadblock, and they don't have the skill set, or they don't have the drive, or they don't have that why of going, listen, I'm not going to be pushed around anymore, and I'm going to push through this roadblock, and I'm going to get to the other side of it, man. And I tell you, I used that divorce as fuel and momentum to get what I wanted.
I want to double tap on that a little bit, like your experience with a divorce. And say you're talking to students, do you talk to them and ask them if their spouse or significant other is on board? Because I mean, the whole mindset, it turns into a lifestyle shift altogether.
Yeah, you know what I've found is that most people that are scared to talk to their spouse is they've typically had failure in the past. They've typically had, things that haven't gone right, and they don't know what to do to get further ahead, right? Like, hey, what are the solutions? How is this time going to be different? I look at everything as prep work. Anytime that you get into a multifamily deal, it's prep work. When I flipped single family homes, right, and I painted homes, the prep work was the hardest part, right? When you go to your spouse and you can say, hey, look this is what I want to do. This is what I'm going to do to get there. And I'm going to show you how to do it. A lot of times, a lot of people go, hey, this is what I'm doing, and they're nervous, right? They don't go in with confidence, and a spouse sees that. Typically, when I coach people, I tell them, listen, go with confidence and tell them what the plan is. Tell them what your business plan is. Tell them what your model is, the roadmap to get there, and how that will benefit your family. Most people don't have a plan, and your spouses know that, right? Partners in general, whether it's a business partner or a spouse, typically know if you have a plan or not, if you're going to succeed. And so, man, just be confident in your approach.
Amen to that, man. Because the words that your ex-wife told you about your 180K, that's got to be so piercing to a man, dude. Like you feel emasculated. You feel like all your hard work is like dying in vain, and the person that you think who you thought was like the most important person is not seeing the same vision. So I could only imagine how much pain you felt.
Yeah, I think that it was. I'll be honest, man, at the time, I felt like, just throwing in the towel, being like, man, what am I doing wrong? How am I going to impress this person? And the reality, guys, in life, I'm not advocating divorce, but man, you need a partner that's going to support you. And you need someone along that journey. And once again, I'm not going to advocate divorce, but listen, sometimes partnerships don't work out, man. They just don't work out, but what do you learn from those partnerships? How can you get ahead? What are the right questions you can ask before entering a partnership? Right. And know that person's going to be supportive of whatever your goals and dreams are.
We appreciate you for sharing that story, man. And, I want to scale it back a little bit. So you start off with single family flips, right? Or is it single family holds?
Single family flips, man. Yeah, never
Flips,
helped.
okay. What was your red pill moment where like, okay, I need to stop doing this and start scaling further, and why multifamily?
2008, man. 2008 hit and it slammed us, man. Most times investors will ask, have you gone down through a downturn in the economy? And I went down through a downturn in the economy. And, really, we were making 50, 60, 80 grands on flips. That turned into 25,000. Dialing back, John, I have an accounting degree. And I thought, man, I'm making 15 grand on flips. I could go back to work. I could make more as a partner somewhere. And I knew I didn't ever want to work for someone, man. I knew I didn't want to work for someone. And so really it was single family. And then I actually did go and work for a little bit, man. I'm not going to lie. I went and worked for a little bit, started up a mattress company, got online. I think I've told you guys this before, right? And I've told others this, is I actually started a mattress company online. I was still always an entrepreneur, but I kind of left real estate for a short time, and I made good money. And I thought, man, anytime you guys can witness this, anytime that you're an entrepreneur, it's in your blood, you want to go bigger and bigger and bigger, right? And I knew that I wanted to get bigger. I had that success in single family. My grandfather had multifamily, died a multimillionaire. So I started asking questions, right? I started asking my uncles, I asked my dad, I asked my aunts, how did my grandfather generate wealth? And so, I knew it was multifamily. So then I started attending masterminds. I started attending, different educational events specific to multifamily. And man, I just started asking the right questions. And eventually I met my mentor.
Awesome. Take me back there. So when you started getting back into multifamily, were you looking to invest in other person's deal? Were you looking to be the sponsor? What was your role like? And what did that first deal look like for you?
Yeah. So I'm going to tell you an interesting story, man. I'm full of stories, but I'm going to tell you this. Anyone that thinks there's roadblocks in life, man, I've gone through them, right? In my divorce, I had to file bankruptcy. Most people do, right? Like in a divorce, to file bankruptcy. Well, listen, a bankruptcy on your record never looks good when you go to a lender, right? And imagine going through that and you feel, emasculated, right? It's, man, not only going through a divorce, but looking at it going, man, I filed bankruptcy. How am I going to get ahead? What am I going to do? Right. And that's with partnerships, man. And I partnered up with people that had credit. I partnered up with sponsors. I partnered up with asset managers until eventually I got to a point where my credit was good, that bankruptcy was gone, and I could sponsor myself. So I just partnered and looked for the right people. And so, yeah, man, I started going to those events and finding, smaller deals. I found there's a lot of people that say, go big, man, go bigger deals. No, like our first deal was, I think 80 units, 16 units. Then it was a 31, a 34, 40, and then we got into a 122 unit deal. So it was like the sixth deal that was over 100.
That's pretty big for a few deals already. That's crazy. I love it. You just went for it. That's what it is. And that's the life of an entrepreneur, man. We're problem solvers. We always have this obstacle challenges and we just figure out how to get through stuff. And my background is in technology. So I feel like everything in life or as an entrepreneur, I'm always thinking I'm troubleshooting. I'm troubleshooting an error. Like, what I mean? It's like it's crazy, but we love the journey. So that's awesome. I love it.
Yeah, I love it. I love that you're in technology, man. It is. Troubleshooting, forecasting, like in accounting, man. I love cost accounting. I love managerial accounting. And a lot of it is about forecasting out. Entrepreneurs, if they can forecast, right, they'll have success. You live in the present moment and go, man, I face problems as they come. Now, listen, we're always looking. I'm a big fan of chess. I'm always looking 5-6 moves ahead, and not to mean that there's not going to be problems, but I can eliminate some of those problems if I'm constantly looking ahead.
Yeah, it's all about mitigating the risks because no matter what we do, it's a risk. We hop in our car, take our kids to school. It's a risk, right? But we minimize it with using a seatbelt, abiding by the, the red lights that are out there. But what I wanted to ask you, Ryan, is like the power of proximity, right? And prior to when you found the mastermind, you found that power of proximity. Why is it so important for especially new people getting into multifamily or commercial real estate or any business venture? Why is it important to start meeting people, getting them under your network, whether they become indirect or direct partners?
Yeah, man. Listen, if I want to get ahead, man, I need to surround myself around people who have had that success. I need to be able to ask those right questions. John, I'm a golfer. What types of sports do y'all play?
Golf, baseball,
We're golfers.
yep,
Golfers, awesome. Man.
pickleball as of late.
Pickleball, yeah.
Man, that's great, right? That's so great. Getting that hand. I played pickleball 2 or 3 times. I'm not good at it, but I'm a one handicap in golf, right? And so I've worked hard, right? I put a lot of hours into it. Okay, so the question you just asked is proximity. I'm going to relate it to golf, and it relates to everything else. I used to remember looking at people on the range, and you would see 20 handicappers giving lessons to new people. And I thought to myself, man, what poor habits is that individual teaching that new person, right? That new person is never going to get to where they want to be if they're getting a lesson from, a 20 handicapper. But the reality is they don't want to spend the money on a good coach, right? They don't want to spend money on someone who has the expertise. They're too shy. They're too embarrassed to ask, hey, man, can you give me a pointer here and there, right? I mean, here's the thing. As a one handicap, I still have a coach, right? I still have, a teacher that gives me lessons to stay fine-tuned, right? And so I would compare that to that, man. Like, if people want to have success, they've got to surround themselves around low handicappers, right? In my case, I'll go and I'll bet any amount of money. You know what I learned in golf? When I was a 15 handicapper, a 12 handicapper, a 10 handicapper, dude, I would say, I'll bet you I get to play the right tees, you play the back tees. I knew that there were lower handicaps. I knew that, and I knew I was going to lose money every single time. But guess what I was doing on the course? I was seeing how they prepared, how they got behind a shot, what they were looking at, what part of the green were they hitting at, right? What was their preparation to a shot? When they were over the shot, how long did they spin on it? When they read a putt, what did they do? And I did the same thing in real estate, right? Why did my mentor not buy a lot of deals during a certain time in a downturn? Why did he not do that? And I would ask questions. Hey, Dave, why did you not do that? Right? Why didn't you go buy more money? You had plenty of capital to go do it. And I would ask those questions, right? And so surrounding yourself around successful people will allow you to, like you said, mitigate risk, how to identify opportunities, right? How to find off-market deals, how to establish relationships, and how to get your right mindset.
Sports teaches you that, man. Growing up in baseball, I was happy if I failed 70% of the time.
Yeah.
And then with golf, it's like it's a sport where, yeah, you're competing with others, but ultimately, man, you're competing against yourself. Everyone has the same course conditions. The slopes of the green are still gonna be the same. Yeah, maybe the white and black and the blue tees are gonna be a little bit different, but how much of that of sports, your experience with sports, helped you as an entrepreneur?
Dude, what's funny? You just said we all have the same conditions. And think about that in business. We all have the same opportunity. It's a matter of what you do with it. So it's interesting, man. I had bankruptcies. I had a divorce, right? I had all these objections in front of me. But was my desire and my drive more important to me than anything else? And I heard Inky Johnson once say, is your drive more, let's see, I actually have it on my phone here, but and I can look it up really quick, but it was basically like, is it your drive greater than the power to live or something like that, right? Something along those lines, right? And your drive always has to be better. And that's what I do love about analogies with golf, man, is we all have the same conditions, but what do you do with it, man? You see, like I look at the Grant Cardones. Dude, Grant came from poor beginnings, man, and look at him today. Look at what he built. And everyone has the same conditions. In fact, a lot of wealthy people came from, poor upbringings.
I want to ask you this question. This is like, I don't think I've ever asked this, but why, like, if you watch the news, right, or you pay attention to like social media, the victim mindset is huge, right?
Wow.
And, we all have the same course conditions. Yeah, maybe, some people maybe grew up in a different area where it's, you have successes in one category and another area has successes in the other. But why is the middle class getting shaved? Why is the middle class, I'm seeing it more and more having the victim mentality? Whereas, like once I saw the light, I started realizing for myself, like, granted, I come from a W-2 world. It was my wife and Anthony that brought me into this because I was so comfortable in my W-2 world. I didn't even entertain entrepreneurship. How can middle-class America improve their lives and also the legacy of their families, knowing that, dude, the middle class, it's the disparity between elites and those dependent on government is becoming greater and greater. And some states, are a little bit greater than some of the other states.
Yeah, man. So you want to know more of like, how do you get that mindset out of the middle class? So you want to make
Yeah.
sure.
I mean, you maybe through experience from your students.
Yeah, man, I'll tell you this, on a personal level, and then I see it from the students, man. I grew up, my parents only made 30,000 a year. I think they ended up making 35, maybe 40 at the max. It wasn't until my grandfather passed away that we inherited some money. But I look at the mindset. People aren't comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? Like you've got to be uncomfortable and something that's going to drive you even more. Here's the thing, man. It's easy. It's easy to complain, right? It's easy to play that the victim mindset. What's hard is to go out there and grind, man. It's hard to go out there and do work. So people maintain that victim mindset because it's easy, right? I mean, why go do something hard? But I look at life and go like this, man. The millions of dollars that I've generated and the life that I'm able to live with my family. Listen, I was just telling my wife to take our daughter to Thailand. That's an expensive trip, man. But like, how many people can say they got to send their wife and daughter out to Thailand? Or listen, we just went to the Bahamas and went and bought jet skis 3 weeks before we went to the Bahamas so that we could cross over on jet skis. I mean, those are memories that we're able to create, but it's money that allows us to do that, right? But it's because I'm comfortable with being uncomfortable, and I look at students and I see the ones that have success and the ones that don't have success, and really, the individuals, one in particular right now is she wants to complain about everything, right? And I look at it and go, man, you have so much potential that if you just applied yourself, forgot about that one time that things didn't go right, that you lost a little bit of money, right? And now you're going to let that deter you from success, and you're going to go right back into that path, right, of easiness, right, of what you call middle class, right? Whereas if she just learned, right, if she just learned from what happened and what went wrong, dude, this person has so many skill sets, so much potential. And what happens is a lot of people never reach that potential because they have one thing that happens to them wrong, one thing, and they revert right back into what they did before.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it really depends on the person, actually, right? Like we can only do so much. We can only motivate them, encourage them. But at the end of the day, you got to look yourself in the mirrors. What do you want to do? You want to sit around here or get in the game? You know what I mean? So it's crazy. And that's a great experience that you get to help with your students. But to pivot, what are you working on now? Do you have your own kind of training program, or are you continuing to buy multifamily, submitting offers? What are you working on now?
Yeah, man, thanks. I was part of two different companies, an investment company and an education company, right? And in leaving that, in leaving that partnership and that opportunity, right? I went through a decision of, do I want to retire? Listen, you guys know, man, once you're an entrepreneur, it's tough to retire, right? Like you get it in your blood, you want to work, you want to grind, right? And so looking to see if I really want to create generational wealth, do I teach, right, my kids how to create that generational wealth, how to create wealth for themselves, right? I can't just hand it to them. They got to learn how to do it as well. And so, yeah, we created 7 Reigns, and we have a deal under contract we're doing right now. It's in Macon, Georgia, and 152 units, man. And a lot of the things that I've learned in deals that we've struggled with, things that haven't worked out, how we always wanted, I've been able to implement those on my own. I've been able to make those changes and go after deals, right, that fit my criteria. And so, dude, we underwrote like 32 different properties until we got to this one. And it wasn't because those other deals weren't good, man. I mean, listen, they had good returns. They just didn't fit our criteria. So, yeah, I have 152 units. And listen, man, I've had the blessing of reaching out to a lot of these students who were a part of the company I was with and still teaching them, right? And showing them, right? Because ultimately, man, listen, the best thing you can do is give back. And, I've created a lot of generational wealth. I mean, not generation, I've created a lot of wealth for myself. My life has changed. I mean, think about it, from going from a divorce, bankruptcy, to now owning my house outright, right? I own a hotel down in Belize, and so my life has changed because of that. But guess what? There's people that have the opportunities, or that took the opportunity to give me and teach me, right? And if it weren't for those individuals, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. And so, listen, man, I get people that reach out to me, ask if I help coach them, if they can jump on our deals. And so that's what I'm doing right now, man. Not only am I doing deals, but I'm training, man. I'm giving back to the people that want help.
Yeah, Ryan, I have a confession for you, man. So
Yeah.
before I even knew who you were and really what group you started, the mastermind, with my meetups and the meetups that Anthony and I were going to, we were seeing these brilliant minds, bro, spending tens of thousands of dollars, whether it's your group, or your former group, and then all these other reputable ones, especially here on the West Coast. And there was a common theme, man, that I found in the last couple of years, dude. Like they were getting these great deals. They would fork over their EMDs. But if I follow up with them like 3 to 6 months later, I'm like, how did it go? They're like, man, we couldn't do it. I'm like, why? Well, and I would say 9 times out of 10, it was raising capital. Yeah. And Anthony and I, for 9 Doors Down, we developed a name for ourselves through the fund of a fund model. So we were raising for other operators while co-GPing and while even having joint ventures on random deals. But we've actually taken on, like, some of your students, help coach them up for the fund model, right? And now they're raising capital for other people's deals. They build up their brand. They get 1 or 2 deals up under that operator. Next thing you know, the third one, they're now raising capital for their own deals, man. But that always a student mentality is always there. Just because you graduated from the mastermind, now the real work begins. Now it's the action takers. And I always tell people, I was like, how many losses did you get today? Well, you need more losses, man, because that's going to make you better. Yeah. And whereas what you said earlier, like, they get that one loss and they get so defeated and they ended up, they feel like they wasted those tens of thousands of dollars. And I just tell them, no, you just got to keep going. I was like, you could leverage and ride coattails of other operators to build up your brand.
Yeah. Dude, what's interesting, man, as you said that, where my mind went was, had they never joined those masterminds, they would have never known what the opportunities are out there. Think about it, right? If they would have kept living their life, the W-2 jobs, you said Anthony brought you into the fold, right? He introduced you to this. Think about it, you could have been down your W-2 job still, right? Mm-hmm. Is I look at people and I agree with you, man. They spend that money. Look at the drive they have now. They're going, man, listen, I could actually achieve this. So I think it's awesome that the both of you have taught the fund-to-fund models, because you're right. You could go through an education program, right? But look at how many people go through college and then never get jobs.
Yep.
It's the same thing.
And what you said earlier about the best underwriters become the best capital raisers, I 100% agree. When I first got in the space, I was like thinking the sales and marketing guy and stuff, right? But through the fund of a fund model, so Anthony, he does a lot of our DD with our operators. So yeah, he's analyzing the deal also, but he's also doing the due diligence on the operator. How many successful exits? What is the AUM? Maybe was our fund manager or a retail investor that we could talk to, like, for a reference. So what you said about the underwriters become great capital raisers, it's 100% true, man, because they could identify a great opportunity much quicker than a guy like me who's like, oh, let me just spread the word. Like, I'm gonna have my mouth and just start advertising the deal.
Yeah, dude. It's I never think I believe it or not, man, John, I never thought that way. I thought that I was just an underwriter. I provided that information over to a capital raiser, right? And they went and did the work, and when I found out that I had all the ammunition, right? I was the one that knew the market. I knew the research. Anthony, just like you, the due diligence. You know all the answers, And so when I found that out, and I was like, oh shoot, man, I can answer any question this person has. And so, then you implement a little bit of sales strategy into it and go, dude, now I'm a powerful person. There's not a lot of questions that I can't answer to an investor, And so, dude, I totally agree, man. I'm excited to go out to Vegas and teach that.
That's so funny, because when I started investing in real estate back in 09, 08, I never saw myself ever getting into multifamily. And once I did transition to multifamily, I never even saw myself raising capital, because I was the guy that can underwrite, get the deal down, get locked in, talk to brokers, build those broker relationships. I always just tried to, I was just say I was a solopreneur. I was always trying to do everything myself. I was managing property 5,000 miles away. I mean, it was crazy. And then I realized right away, I was like, this sucks. I hate doing this. Yeah. And then I figured, and then once John and I kind of teamed up, we he helped me with his skills in sales, and He's right. Like we know that the underwriters know the deal the most and the best, and they're the best person to explain everything because the investors are going to ask the details of the deal,
Yeah.
and we would be the right people to talk to. So that's awesome, man. But as far as your deals now, what is your major role, or what do you like to do? Do you still like to stick around in the underwriting? You like the asset management part of it, or are you now like, hey, I love capital raising?
I've gotten to the point where I sponsor, right? And so I'll be honest, man, the model that we have is I want to sponsor and give up some of my ownership to increase others' ownership. Okay. I mean, the reality is the path to sponsoring your own deals is ownership. You need to have more ownership. And so really I'm playing the role of a sponsor right now, and then, or a key principal. It seems like every educational group calls it different, right? I mean, and so really that's what I'm doing. So I'm kind of doing a little bit of each of it, raising capital. But, answer your question, I love operations, man. I love asset management. You can make your money up front, but listen, I always tell everyone this: the easiest investor to get is the existing investor, right, in your deals. If you can run your deal correctly, right, and you operate your deals correctly, you communicate that down to your investors of what's going on with good, bad, or indifferent, that communication, that transparency, they're going to continue to invest with you, man. And so I enjoy the operational side of it. I enjoy incentivizing our on-site staff, right? I enjoy going over those numbers and the underwriting side of it and say, hey, can we hit these numbers? If we can't hit it, what are the different solutions? We know as underwriters, the end result really is the net operating income. But there's a lot of ways to get that to that net operating income, right? An effective gross income, your deficiencies, cutting back expenses, increasing income. There's not just one way, right? And so if we can hit specific numbers to get there, right? I like to incentivize our on-site staff. And so for me, man, operations, I don't do a lot of underwriting. One of my other partners I have right now, he does all the underwriting, and then I take a look at it. And then we have a group of 3 of us that poke holes in it, right? Of going, hey, what do you see? What do you see? What do you see? And then if all 3 of us agree on the underwriting, then we move forward with the deal.
All right, let's get into underwriting a little bit more. How has the conditions changed in 2024? And at least for me, when I got into multifamily, it was 2020, and raising capital then was a little bit different, and there was more dry powder on the sidelines. So, how was your criteria and buy box? How has it shifted since?
Yeah, no, great question, man. Listen, we made a lot of money in 2020, 2021, 2022. You could essentially sign on a loan and make money, right? You could. And so, investors knew that, right? Money was cheap back then. And so, money's not so cheap right now. Interest rates have gone up, inflation, all of that. Right? Insurance has gone up, property taxes have gone up. Everything has changed that way. What got a lot of people into problems when they started buying in 21, 22, 23, right, is they weren't properly funded in their deals. And so a lot of my criteria in our buy box is we won't do a deal unless we can put reserves in there. So contingencies, and I think a lot of investors are looking for, deals that are properly capitalized right now. They're looking for conservative approaches. Back in 21, 22, when you were buying properties, if you could tell them your annual rate of return, your on your exits was what? I mean, for us, for a while there, it was over 30%. We had killer returns. And so investors today are looking for more conservatives. Are you gonna tell them the downside of what happened on some of your properties? Have you ever had poor experience? I just on the phone with an investor today, high net worth individual, and he said, "Hey, everyone always talks about their wins, but tell me about deals that you've screwed up on." This person's worth millions, like millions, and so it was interesting what he was doing. He was testing me. He was seeing that if we've had hard times. And so for us, man, like we put a lot of safeguards in there. Have we stress tested? We didn't have to really stress test. Like when you joined, John, and started doing deals in 2020, you didn't have to stress test a whole lot. You just didn't, man. You could sign on loans and make money. Now, man, what is your stress test? Are you looking at insurance? Are you looking at interest rates? Are you looking at property taxes? What are you doing to mitigate those risks? And so in that underwriting, those are the things that have changed. Do you have, in the event that anything were to change, like insurance, property taxes, right? Do you have enough funds put away for a rainy day, or are you going to have to go back and do capital calls to your investors? So That's what we've changed in our underwriting, man. Also, we've increased our exit cap rates, to make sure that we hit those numbers. So we've changed a lot in our underwriting to take down deals.
Wow, that's so true. I mean, 100%. Like the problem with like people who are getting into multifamily later, they did not understand that. They didn't know how to underwrite negative growth.
Yeah.
It was just, and it kind of. I'm glad when you say stick to your buy box, like nine doors down, we stuck to our buy box. We didn't win a lot of deals, and that was because we did that, and it actually worked out because some of those properties are struggling now because they were way over
Yeah.
leveraged, and had no rate caps, had nothing. Maybe had some reserves, but those reserves go really quick once you double up on that interest rate. When that interest rate doubles up,
Well, the insurance goes up in
everything.
the hurricane areas.
I'm glad you brought that up. And is that something now you're teaching some of your students on kind of that underwriting piece and what to look for?
Yeah, it's interesting. You brought up bridge loans, and I think that there's a negative connotation in bridge loans. The purpose of a bridge loan is to stabilize. A lot of people associate bridge loans with adjustable rate, loans, which we saw back in 2006, 2007, going to 2008, which is one of the major reasons that caused that crash, right? And so I think that if you're going to go bridge, get fixed bridge, get fixed interest rates. And if your deal works with fixed interest rates, it may be a little bit higher, but then all right. But don't get into bridge right now with adjustable rates. But you said something about the rent growth. And one thing that I teach, people right now is, even back several years back, and I was looking at people's deals, at them underwriting, seeing that interest rates were going up, right? And we see a downturn in the economy. What happens? You have decreasing rents, right? I mean, it goes down. Your rent growth is declining. And so what a lot of people don't realize is they want to get into a deal so bad. Anthony, this is the underwriter. The easiest way to manipulate returns is your rent growth, right? And exit cap rates. And so I would go in and ask, hey, like, are you sure? Wait, hang on. Interest rates are going up. We saw that back in 22, right? Going into 23. Yet their rent growth continues to go up to, a year, 2, 3 years into the project. And I go, okay, what happens if you don't hit those, right? What happens if you don't? All of a sudden you go way back down. You're never going to hit your returns to your investors ever, right? And they just want to do the deal so bad because why? They're so focused on acquisition fees. They're so focused on the fees that they're getting rather than, what's best for their investors. So I'm glad you brought that rent growth. Dude, I teach that time and time again, making sure that you're closer to more organic growth. And if you can increase your rent growth, man, that's just gravy.
Yeah, that's the funny thing is I've seen some underwriting where they had rent growth of like 5-7%, or maybe some were 10. It was crazy. And then okay, if they reduce it, they'll reduce it to 2. But like I said, it's like still, what if you go negative, but it's just crazy. But I mean, that's a learning experience for them, and they'll figure it out as they go through the process of the deal.
Yeah. Unfortunately, right? I mean, it's the expense of who? So the expense of their investors, which is unfortunate. You lose one deal, you can lose your name. I mean, you could be out of the business pretty quick. Whereas if you just did it correctly, and listen, and I think that goes back to John, what you said, proximity, the law of proximity. Are you surrounding yourself around people getting into the business? They should go ask people who've been through different cycles and say, what learning lessons did you go through, and what could you have done differently? What advice do you have for me? And guess what? Are they writing notes? Not just mental notes. Are they putting it in a book, right, where they can remember it later on? And so, man, I see that time and time again. But it's funny you said that, man. There was a property in Texas down in Houston. And I remember at the time, market rent growth was like 12%. And they were like 12% the first year, 10% the second year. I was like, ooh, you are not going to hit that at all. Not even close to that, right? So I totally agree with you. And then it's like, well, what would you put it at? And so, dude, when you start asking questions like that, you might as well put it back at 3%, organic growth.
The reputation is the one that will take you the furthest, and it will also crush you. And all it takes is one bad deal to just ruin that reputation. And And we're seeing it now in 2024, man. And which is, but the good thing about you, Ryan, is like you've had your teeth kicked in multiple ways and in multiple times or multiple cycles since 2006.
Yeah.
And before we dive into the lightning round, Ryan, I just want to shout out the event that you're going to be here in Las Vegas. So Ryan Woolley on Tuesday, August 6th from 5:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. He's going to be the guest speaker for Investors Club Network. So for those that's going to be in the Las Vegas area or want to attend, it's going to be at the Whiskey Stadium. We're going to have the Eventbrite link for the meetup where you get to hear Ryan's story even further and maybe pick his brains in person. So, Ryan, we look forward to having you on the 6th, man.
Same here, man. Thanks for inviting me, man. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. So let's get into the lightning round. So the first lightning round question is, you probably heard this, you've probably been asked this multiple times on previous podcasts, but what is Ryan's superpower?
Golly, man, providing value to others, I think, always thinking about others first. I would truly believe, man, you put others first, money will always come. And I've lived that since I was a little kid. I mean, my mom and my dad told me that, and it's really just, providing value to others.
Givers gain.
Yeah, givers gain.
Right?
I love it.
All right. These next two questions, Ryan, we're just going to I'll just put it out there, man. These two are probably going to be the most difficult questions you've ever faced as an investor. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. First question. You're stuck on an island. Not a single soul is with you. No family members, no friends, no business partners, no limited partners, right? There's no internet, no text messaging, no social media, whatever. However, you could bring your smartphone. And on your smartphone, you could load up an MP3 because there's no data, right? You get to load up either one musical artist or one musical album that you can listen to on repeat until you get rescued. What is that artist or album that you can listen to?
Oh, artist or album? I'm a country boy, right? So I love country. Artist or album, huh? Man.
Told you.
I'm a big fan of geez, dude. Now this is tough. This really is tough. Listen, when I jam out in my car, I'm a big Michael Jackson fan. But that's not country, man. But I like my old school rock to rock out to it. It just gets me going, right? So man, I don't know. It had to be some kind of old, some kind of classic rock or maybe Michael, something with some energy. That is a tough question.
So we'll go with Michael Jackson on that one. But I'm still kind of curious to hear what your country selection is.
Now I'm a big fan of Keith Urban, Dan and Shay, Luke Bryan. Morgan Wallen. Morgan Wallen's going to be there on the 8th. I'm thinking about sticking around for it, but Keith Urban. I love his energy, man.
Love that. Good answer. Good answer.
All right, man. So here's my question. I know you like to travel. You said you love taking your family out to vacations. Now, are you a tropical person or a mountainous person? And whichever you choose, of course, where's your bucket list? Where would you want to go that you haven't been to? It seems like you traveled a lot.
Man, I do love the tropics and the mountains, right? I go to both places every year. So Santorini is on the list, man. Greece. So
Greece,
that's next on the list, man. So we'll be doing it either this year or next year. And so, yeah, man. Santorini.
Nice. That's the third Greece response that we've done on our podcast.
Yeah.
Mykonos too. My mom wants to go to Mykonos. I think I'm saying it right. I don't know if it's in Greece.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Italy or Greece, man. But Santorini, I love the tropic, love the water, love the Mediterranean. So yeah, probably there.
Awesome. Love it.
So Ryan, how can our listeners get a hold of you and learn more about your investment opportunities? Social media handles, websites, phone number, emails. The floor is yours.
Love it, man. So Instagram is going to be _Ryan Woolley. That's and then underscore. So _RyanWoolley_ or Seven Rains on Instagram as well. Or my website is sevenrains.com. And that's 7, the number 7, Rains, REINS.com.
All right. So for our listeners, get a hold of Ryan, learn more about investment opportunities, but also, hey, the fastest way to get to your final destination is work with a coach, and Ryan has that track record. So, Ryan, I just want to thank you for taking the time to hop on our podcast. For all our listeners at home, please like, follow, comment. You could find us on Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, TuneIn, and many more. And on that note, we are the 9 Doors Down Show. Thank you for tuning in. And on that note, we out.
Peace.
Okay, guys, thanks so much.